Welcome to Two Woke Bonnets, a podcast where we revisit the classic TV shows of our Gen X childhoods and see how well they hold up today. With your hosts, Carol and Joey.
Hello and welcome to the Prairie, where we have some very irate cats. This is Carol.
Cat herding. The new
The new Prairie.
Little house.
The new Prairie game.
This is Joey.
Yes, I was at somebody else's house where they have other cats, and they have not forgiven me for smelling like other cats. So
How dare you?
I know. I had to feed my brother's cat. So, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about another episode of Little House on the Prairie, because we are two woke bonnets,
Yes,
and we
we
watch
are.
Little House on the Prairie, and we kind of see
From a
if it
place
holds
of
up.
love.
Yes, we may drag Walnut Grove quite a bit, but yeah, it deserves to be drugged sometimes, and we do it from an area of love. We love the show. We've seen it many times. So here we are talking about episode three of season 2, In the Big Inning. Is it episode 4? Oh, that's right. Episode 3 was Ebenezer Sprague. Episode 4, In the Big Inning. So get it? In the Big Inning. Get it?
Yep.
If you don't want to put on the bonnet, you can't be on the show.
That was to the
Lord,
cat,
Nix.
not me. I'm wearing the bonnet. I'm wearing it.
I'm wearing the bonnet too.
But I'm wearing it.
So yes, we're here to talk about In the Big Inning.
Yes. So
Our
sports.
first baseball episode.
Well, it's our first baseball episode. It's not,
I mean, the kids play.
It's not our first sports event because, of course, we had the Founders Day competition.
Yeah. So
but
this is the first official baseball.
Not a surprise for this storyline. Not from the book series. This storyline is because Michael Landon was an athlete.
Yes.
So he likes to get a lot of sports.
Yes, and you're going to get a lot of that. We'll have a football episode in the future, but now we're in baseball. So the Walnut Grove baseball team, do they have a name?
So they go through, in fact, that's a subplot of this episode, because there are 4 suggestions for names. The Merchants, in honor of the Olson's Mercantile, the Millers, in charge of Lars Hansen's mill, and then the Mulligans, because that's the team Doc Baker played on back in the day when he was in college, but he was one of the worst players. So
he was, so
and sometimes, in golf, to take a mulligan means to take a second turn. So I don't know about that one.
I don't know about that.
And then Reverend Alden suggests the Heavenly Hosts. But Charles points out to him that if they were tried to sew all those letters onto their shirts, the game would be over before they would be done.
And the Olsons buy uniforms that have M's on them.
And it works out because Mulligans, Merchants, and Millers all begins with them.
Yeah, it all works out.
But it doesn't happen till the end, so spoiler. And they don't donate the hats; they just sell them to them at cost.
Yeah, so I'm considering that a Harriet crime. I'm sorry, I'm considering that.
There's multiple Harriet crimes. So basically, we find out Walnut Grove is not very good at playing baseball.
No,
but they compete against.
They was like called for darkness, and they were behind 36-0.
Yeah, so
this was a football game,
and Pa Ingalls is already working on his bat because he's trying to make a bat that's unbreakable because he has this habit of breaking his bats and all this stuff. And whoever was the pitcher last year was not that good. So they were going to try to have Nels, because supposedly it got better, but we don't know about that. But then, as a result, and I don't even remember why they were over there, Oh,
He was
because Pa had fixed a rocking chair.
correct.
Pa went
Yes.
to drop off a rocking chair that he fixed because once again, Pa does carpentry on the side. And so
Between the
he goes
farming and
over
the
to the,
milling and
yeah,
the
yeah.
fixing
So
of all of the ills of Walnut Grove.
he's great at making shoes if you have feet of
That's
two
right.
different
Or at
legs,
least,
solving the
the one
problems.
layer of a shoe.
Yeah. Um, so he's over there and he's talking to the Mumforts, and the Mumforts have a chicken coop, and there is a hawk trying to get their chickens, a chicken hawk.
Mhm.
That's a hawk that goes after chickens, in case you didn't know. Don't you
If
know?
you need more information, please find your nearest Foghorn Leghorn cartoon with the chicken.
And so Jebediah Mumfort, who we've never met before and will never met
Never
again,
see again.
who's a victim of domestic abuse because he's under the stiff iron fist of his wife. But evidently she allows him to pick up rocks and animals. They find out that he can throw a rock really, really well. And suddenly he's going to be the new pitcher for the team, but he's never played baseball in all his life. And
So
as we
it's
know from season 1, baseball was not called baseball back then. They used to call it, what was it?
stickball, wasn't
Three
it? Oh no,
stickball
it
or
was three something
whatever.
cat.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the kids play it in the schoolyard.
but they
But
play it as something different.
yes,
So there's a couple of anachronistic things about this episode. First of all, um, they talk about the fact, so when they actually get to the game part of it, which we'll get to in a second, um, they talk about the fact that it's 4 outs per inning and they're only going by 3. At that
yeah,
point, the 3 inning rule had been in play for 20 years. So either Walnut Grove was really behind the times because they needed that extra out to have a chance to even score. But yeah, so that's the first thing. Um, but so the local town, which they don't really say where that group is
I thought it was
from,
Sleepy Eye.
okay,
I
so
thought it was a
Sleepy
Sleepy
Eye,
Eye green stockings.
yeah, so they come over, green stockings, and they are a very put together team, and they end up coming over early, because the game is going to take place on a Sunday. And evidently, it's okay to play the game on a Sunday, but it's not okay to bet about the game on the Sunday. So they
Right.
came over early to get bets. And of course, Harriet is the one that does the betting. And Lars Hansen does the betting. And then he bets for Mr. Edwards, who's back this episode. And we get to
Yes, he
hear
is definitely back.
Old Man Tucker. So if that was on your bingo card, by the way, today's bingo card is bingo card number 7 for me. I think that you had that one last time.
I think so.
Um, but
I know I
so
didn't
Mr.
get I
Edwards
know I
is
didn't
back.
get a bingo and I my phone is not on my desk, so
Well, I did not get a bingo either, and I'm a little upset about it because I was really close. I had 3 options. But anyway, and I'm telling the story because I just watched this episode 20 minutes
yes.
ago,
I
and
watched it
Carol
last
watched
week.
it last week, but I did not have enough spoons to record 2
And
episodes in the same day.
I'm going to say though, there's not a lot to this episode except the baseball game.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
there's the
they
whole
do some
betting
betting. Yep, they
and
do some betting.
wifey going, no, he can't play this game because you're betting, you devil people.
Well, because so they're in there, we find out that Caroline has gotten really good at her egg selling because this time she has 4 dozen eggs, and she says that she has to do it because this would have been if I had it on my bingo card, this would have been my 2024 unwoke moment because she said she had to get 4 dozen eggs together because the price of eggs were so low. I was like,
Thing.
not the case now. Not the
Who
case
is
now.
buying all of these eggs? Because not only she was giving a bunch of eggs, but Mrs. Mumford brought in a bunch of eggs. And I'm like, who's buying
No, I thought
all
she
of
came in to
these
buy.
eggs?
Yeah, so she brought eggs too. But there must be people that just don't farm or
Don't have
whatever.
chickens?
I don't know.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
Doc Baker was being paid in chickens.
Yeah.
So I don't
So
know
yeah.
where all these eggs are going.
But anyway, so then she finds out in the course of talking that there was betting going on. This is June Mumfort, who is the wife of
Harpy wife.
Jebediah. Yep.
But
And
she's trying to be portrayed as
she
a harpy. She's not really. I mean, she's
no, but she's
domineering, but she's
very religious and she is very aghast. She is more that kind of Puritan background
yeah,
where it's like all work, no play. And so she's already kind of out of sorts about the whole playing thing. And now, these grown men are playing, but they're also betting on a Sunday, on the Lord's Day. And so she is like, I am done. And so she tells Jebediah he can't do it. And then he has to walk over to his group of friends and say, my wife
I
says
can't
I can't
do
play. And Charles says, do you want me to go speak to her? And he's like, well, you can if you want to. And Charles says, no, I think I won't. She won't change her mind. She's scary. So off they go. Now they've got nobody, but they've
Yeah.
already made their bets. I have to tell you, this is a point. They talk about, again, the whole conversation on is it the merchants, the millers, the heavenly hosts, the mulligans, whatever. And all of them bet on the name of the team that they want.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I was waiting for that to be a subplot point, that they didn't have to pay it because it was all different names, but it didn't matter. It was the
didn't
Walnut
matter.
Grove team. And in fact, Charles's shirt on the back of his shirt says Walnut Grove. He
Which
does not
incidentally is
commit to
kind of
any names.
yeah, because
So
when Carolyn's sewing it, that wall is right in the middle of the shirt, and then later on, it's like
yeah,
Grove is centered. So I'm like, yeah, somebody fixed that. So
yeah, somebody fixed it for her. But anyway, so they go and they're gonna play. And everybody's out there. They even
yeah,
wheel the chalkboard, which is suddenly on wheels.
yeah, and I guess Mrs.
Never
Beadle had a
saw that on
spare.
wheels before. And the girls are dressed in their Sunday best. And I will
They're
say
having a
that I
picnic.
feel like with the green stockings, that was ethnic stereotype with Slick McBurney, who is the
Yeah,
pitcher.
who is a really awful man.
He's an awful man. He's the only one you see drinking beer, except
Hmm.
for at the very end with Mr. Edwards. But he's carrying around a glass stein of beer on the pitching field, smoking a
Smoking a
cigar,
cigar.
talking with his thick accent. And again, he's the bad guy, and he's of that Irish, Scottish descent. I mean, very clearly not Minnesotan and not Swedish like Lars. And Jebediah. So okay,
So
so
yeah, how
so
they convince his wife to allow him to play.
Caroline was part of the conversation that caused Jebediah to have to drop out.
Hmm.
So in a way, it was her fault, but it really wasn't her fault. And that's when I commit a crime because betting is illegal,
Yeah,
right? Like they talk about the fact that betting is not good. So that was my first Harriet's crime X. And then
it's
I felt like I
and in
could have.
actuality, it actually was a crime because it would have been illegal.
Yeah. So especially, given all the factors. So Caroline just feels terrible because it's so important. And then Charles points out that, them not playing, they kept playing even though they lost because they just wanted to win one. And if they won one, then they wouldn't feel like they had to keep playing because at least they stopped playing as winners instead of
Yes.
as losers. So that's kind of that 1970s woke moment for me,
Yeah.
is that she realized that this would just allow this nonsense
It would
to stop.
allow some closure.
Yeah. So then the ladies meeting society evidently happens. It has to have happened on Saturday because again, the game was on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And at the meeting, once all of the regular business is attended to, which I love this little side snippet, and I know it was a week ago for you, so I'm just going to point it out. I love this little side snippet where they're trying to vote on possible curtains in the church. And then we realize that the reason why Mrs. Oleson voted for curtains in the church is because she wanted them to buy the curtain fabric from her store.
For her.
And
Yeah.
once they realized that they were going to have to pay for the curtain fabric, that she wasn't going to donate it, that she couldn't get a second to confirm with her. Anyway,
Yeah.
so then Caroline stands up and she says, what if we take the money from the betting, and if they win, that money will go to the fund,
Curtains in the church.
the church fund, the
Yeah.
school fund, whatever. And and it would do that because really the end justifies the means, right?
Yes.
That's like the idiom that she's working off of. And they do a turkey raffle and they use that to raise money. So why
This is just
couldn't
kind of
the
like
betting be
that.
done that? And this is the part that cracks me up, okay? Because we're sitting here with our bonnets, right? So the whole time it's the camera's focused on June Mumfort, and behind her are two ladies of the church, not anybody that we know as like, it's not Miss Snyder, it's not any of the ones that we've known that have speaking lines normally. And there's one lady that it looks like she took two Prairie hats and sewed them together into this heart-shaped thing. It's crazy. And
She
then
was
this other,
special with her bonnet.
yeah, she did something special with her bonnet where she made it extra poofy and a seam down the middle. And it just looks
Yeah.
like she's wearing a bra on her head, like a
Yeah.
big bra. And then the other lady has ribbons and everything, but it's just not a pretty hat. It's not the feather. It's not the bird of paradise. It's not any of the other stuff. But it's these little weird, odd hats where it was like, I feel like the prop lady just ran out of clothes and said, you guys wear
And said,
this.
hey, you guys bring your own bonnets, and they went special with them.
Yeah. So anyway, so Miss Mumfort gives in and says that she'll do it because it's for the church. And so now Caroline has saved the day and Pa just thinks she's better than sliced bread. I feel like
Of course he does.
we need to do this as part of the bingo cards where it's like Ma saves the day, Pa says that saves the day.
Saves the day.
And I'm
Yeah.
also going to do one where Laura quote, Pa says ... because I feel like
Yeah.
we say that a
We
lot.
say that a lot. Yeah, she says that a lot.
So we have several moments where Laura spouts wisdom from Pa and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so game day comes. Slick McBurney, who is the pitcher from the other team, drinking, smoking, doing all this stuff. Walnut Grove's up to bat first, which can we just point out that's not how the game works because
No,
who was the
visiting team would
last
have
to
been.
bat?
Yeah.
They were also the last to bat. So there's several and the order is not
Yeah,
consistent
there's
of the
several
batters.
mistakes in this.
There's several accuracy mistakes. So you have to look past this, my sports loving people.
Yeah,
You just
don't
have to
expect this
go
to
with
be a
it.
very
Because there
it's
are
also early
moments,
baseball, so the umpire is located behind the pitcher.
yeah, like so close to the pitcher, you wonder how the pitcher can even pitch.
I know. And
Yeah, and there's several jokes about that. Like evidently Mr. Edwards, this is his first time playing catcher because he almost gets hit in the face the first time that they're doing the whole thing. So, and he actually makes a mitt for himself out of a grain seed bag and a piece of beef jerky because it adds the leather to the ball. Anyway, Jebediah does a great job and he's striking people out. And 3 outs, they never even got on base. It seems like Walnut Grove is going to do better. And then Pa tries to get up to bat, and of course he breaks his bat because he hits it so hard. Because
very, very
the
badly.
also Slick McBurney realizes that he can't win the normal way. So now he starts hitting ball players with the ball.
He starts cheating.
He starts cheating. He starts soaking the water ball from the thing, and different things like that. Just trying to do. At one point, he has 3 balls up by him, so they aren't sure which ball is the one that they're supposed to use to tag people out. The
Which you
cinematic
would have
payoff
replayed that point.
of this
You would have
game
replayed that
is,
point.
yeah, the cinematic payoff of this game is not the fact that this is done accurately in any sense of the
No.
terms. First of all, throwing overhand doesn't happen for another 20 or 30 years. All sorts of things. Like I said, batters out of order, all sorts of things are happening. the cinematic payoff for me is watching Mr. Edwards run about the bases in a way that only Victor French
Only
does,
Victor
where
French
he's got
could.
his knees going up to his chin, and he is just,
that is
it's
hysterical.
just
I also
comedy gold.
Can we point
Oh,
out how many Southpaws there are in Walnut Grove? Because Pa's a lefty, Mary's a lefty, because I noticed her doing her homework. Isaiah's a lefty, and at least one of the Green Sox guys was a lefty. There's a lot of left-handed people in this. There's five.
no,
Oh,
I'm
well, you're a
lefty.
lefty too, yeah. But
Left
just a lot
people
of
are the only
left-handed
people
people.
in their right mind. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
So it's
I
true.
was
We
just
use the opposite
noticing that. It
side.
was like,
Yeah.
wow, there's a lot of left-handed people in this town.
Well, and the thing that was really funny is like they have this huge display of food and stuff like that, but it doesn't look like they're trying to sell the food. It's just out in display.
I
You
thought
don't see the
it was a picnic.
alcohol, the signs and stuff like that till the end, and stuff like that. So anyway, it
Yeah,
gets
I
down. They're
figured it
only
was a
doing,
picnic. They were doing the after church picnic thing as well as the game. And we'll
yeah,
get to a moment where I'll be like, if I were a wife in this situation, I would be taking a bat to my husband.
yeah. So they get through all of this and they're getting towards the end, and somehow Walnut Grove gets to the point where, so it's 8-5, 8 for the Green Sox, 5 for Walnut Grove. And Mary points out that it was better than last year when it was 36-0 and it
Yeah.
was called for dark. So, but somehow miraculously, everybody gets a little vindication. Nels gets on base by default. The next guy gets on base. The next guy gets on base. And then Pa
Oh, of course.
comes up to bat again, out of order of the way they have been playing. It's his turn. He gets up there. He has to use somebody else's bat because he broke his bat. So he's still not that great of a carpenter, evidently, for himself. But
Aware of that
he
rocking chair, Miss
he
Mumfort.
hits a home run and it goes out there, and then shenanigans ensue because they can't seem to catch. By the way, Walnut Grove can't catch a ball for crap. All right,
No.
like you never see them successfully catch a ball. They have
And
to
I'm
pick
not
it up
gonna
and
lie
throw it.
here. Reverend Alden is a crack umpire.
Yeah,
Because he was just letting that Green Sox pitcher do whatever he wanted on
yeah. He
that
was
mound.
just looking at him sternly, but he was
Yeah.
saying,
And
"Yeah,
it's like, no,
so
throw him out.
you should have thrown him out." But anyway, so then they get into it, and the pitcher, Slick McBurney, is now covering home base because the catcher had to go pick up the ball because it had gone behind, backfield.
Yeah.
And he goes to throw it in, and Pa just bowls the pitcher over, which would not be allowed.
No.
And then a fight ensues because everybody's doing it. Now, one of the things that it points out on IMDb is nobody's actually throwing any fisticuffs except for Mr. Edwards. Everybody else is just grabbing each other and tossing them or struggling. Nobody is doing
No, nobody's
punches.
actually
Nobody is
fighting
punching.
except
The only
Isaiah.
person that punches at all is Victor French throughout this. And he actually does some hilarious things, but he actually does start throwing people at the food, and the food
Yeah.
goes everywhere. Although there is a little goof moment where you see one of the guys from the Green Sox trying to save some of the food. Like maybe they're going to need it later. Like he's holding
Like a
a
second
plate and
shot or
puts it
something
back on
like
the
that.
table. And Pa
Uh,
just keeps throwing the guy that he's got at that table.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I hope there's no crockery breaking. I hope they didn't bring
There
their
had to
nice,
be.
like, Sunday china, because I would be flipped out.
It's
And
bad
I'm sure
enough
that,
that they created this huge spread and the guys just destroy it. And it's funny because you look at that food and it's so obviously fake. Like
yeah.
there's one loaf of bread that's just spinning on the ground. And I'm like, that's so obviously plastic.
And it
But
looks very similar to the loaf of bread that they used in the wheat farming thing,
yeah.
last season. So,
But I would be mad if this is how the game ended. They just started throwing punches and acting like a bunch of children.
and then at one point, Mr. Edwards throws somebody into the beverage station.
Yeah.
And so the the
The
keg
keg
of wine
explodes.
or beer goes spouting up into the air, and he puts his hands in it and he puts the foam in his face. And that's the closest we see anybody other than Slick McBurney drinking on a Sunday.
Incidentally, I cannot believe that they would have this game on a Sunday with a Sunday after church social, and they would
With
have a keg
Reverend
of beer
Alden. Yeah, there's so
and a
many
keg of
things.
beer. I'm not buying that,
Yeah.
but it's a funny moment, so they added it, and it's Isaiah, so
Yeah.
naturally he's going to drink.
Yeah. So he gets away with it. And then in the midst of all this hubbub, Reverend Alden points out that Charles is safe, even though he's nowhere near the base anymore,
Yeah.
because the pitcher's like, no, I tagged him. He's like, where's the ball? And he's like, he looks in his hands and realizes that he doesn't have a ball in either hand. And Reverend Alden holds up a ball, but we've already determined there's 4 balls. So how do we know? But
So,
whatever.
yeah,
And
doesn't
so
matter.
Walnut
Walnut
Grove
Grove
wins
wins.
9-8. A celebration begins. And we fast forward pretty quickly to Caroline and Charles in bed.
Yep.
And here's the funny part. The book that he's reading, The Modern Mechanic or whatever it is, or how to, that book was not published for 20 more years in the future. So evidently now Pa time travels.
Where's your Ralph Waldo Emerson, Charles?
Yes.
Aren't
And
you
that was
reading
one
that
of
to the
my
girls?
annoyances, because if he had eaten popcorn in bed, I would have gotten a bingo. If she had had a nightcap on, I would have gotten a bingo. Also, can we talk about, I was so excited about this episode because we had outhouse humor, not once, but twice. We had a child in the outhouse. So
Yes,
you got
and
to
then we had
click that.
Isaiah in the outhouse.
And then we had Isaiah in the outhouse. So, which is kind of like a grown man child. So you got to have that square, which is the first time I think we've gotten to use that square. So I was very excited about that.
Yeah,
And,
same here.
and then all of a sudden, Caroline decides that she likes baseball after all, and that they shouldn't stop just because they won, because next year they could sell tickets, and that way they can raise money for the school as well. Because as long as you're raising money for the school, you can do things on Sunday. Yeah.
It's okay to bet if you're raising it for the church.
Yes.
I don't know if that actually is biblically correct. I don't think it is. I really don't think it is.
And so that was the episode. So
No, it's kind of a throwaway episode. It's
highly
kind of
entertaining.
Yeah.
Doesn't move the plot of the city or the town forward really at all.
No.
I
did find it absolutely hysterical that hat would not go over Michael Landon's hair.
No.
His
because
hat.
he didn't want it to get messed up, right? So.
And these hats made them all look like they were working at McDonald's. Because it's just this red hat with an M on it and lines, and I'm like, I'd like fries with that, please. But it's just sitting on his big old poofy.
That's so funny. So funny. All right,
yeah,
so let's talk about our village people. All 4 of the characters in here, this is a one and done episode for them.
Yeah, you never
so
see
we
the
have Slick
Mumfords again.
McBurney. He is played by Gregory Walcott. Now, all of these character actors have numerous credits to their name. Slick McBurney, played by Gregory Walcott. He had over 118 acting credits plus other credits. He actually was in Planet 9 from Outer Space. And
I recognized him.
And people asked him how he felt about being in such a horrible movie. And he was kind of like, well, that's not what I'd like to be remembered for, but at least I'll be remembered. So he was also in Ed Wood as one of the potential backers. So just kind of a nod to his involvement. He was in Bonanza. He was in 7 episodes, but not as the same character. He was just a side character. Sorry. He was also in a lot of Clint Eastwood movies and served as Clint Eastwood's kind of whoever the bad guy was tended to be Gregory Walcott. And they actually became super close friends. He actually is from Wendell, North Carolina. So right around the corner. So I thought that was really cool. And his son Todd Maddox. So his original name was Maddox, but for showbiz, he changed it to Walcott. His son,
I'm sure
Todd
his original
Maddox,
name wasn't
was
Slick.
actually one of the puppeteers for Men in Black 2 and
Oh,
3. So
sweet.
little sci-fi, Planet 9 for outer space, Ed Wood, Men in Black. So, some interesting connections there. Next, let's talk about Jebediah Mumfort, played by Carl Lucas. Carl Lucas was from Lowell, Massachusetts. I lived in Lowell, Massachusetts, so I thought that was interesting. He had 142 credits. Most of these guys stopped acting in the 90s, like the early 90s.
Yeah.
But here's something interesting. Jebediah, Carl Lucas, was actually in Blazing Saddles. So was Chuck Hayward. Chuck Hayward played Cosby. So when Slick McBurney was on the sidelines talking to his teammate, that was Cosby. So Chuck Hayward. So they were both in Blazing Saddles together. And he also was in an episode of Batman. It was the Louis the Lilac episode. He was one of the heavies. They always have like a couple of heavies behind whoever the villain is, and he played Acacia. He was also in 2 episodes of Bonanza and 3 episodes of Gunsmoke. So you get both of those on your bingo card. He was also in Tora, which I thought was interesting because June Mumfort, who was played by June Dayton and was in 4 episodes as Gunsmoke as 4 different characters, she was also in Tora.
Wow.
So Carl Lucas was in something with all of these characters in other episodes, in other vehicles. So it's interesting. So Cosby, in 104 episodes, he was actually a stuntman most of the time, and he had over 96 stunt credits. He actually was one of the voices, though, from Lord of the Rings. He was one of the character voices when they needed alternate voices. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And he also was friends with John Wayne. So we had Carl Lucas, who was usually the villain with Clint Eastwood, who was friends with Clint Eastwood. And then Chuck Hayward was often the body double for John Wayne, and then also became friends with John Wayne. And then June Mumfort, again, was in Tora. So not
But you're
as
never going to see
much
any of these
credits
townspeople again. So
they're all just in this one episode, never to appear again.
So you have
Now,
disappearing.
was one we did get a little more. The only move forward in the thing is Mr. Edwards is reunited with his girlfriend.
Yes.
Which was interesting because at the beginning, when she got excited, when he did his first little run around the base, which cracked me up, she got so excited, she ran off the stage and started hugging on him and kissing on him. And he's like, "Woman, don't do that in public." And then at the end, when he comes through and he's part of the Grand Slam home run, he goes running into the stands, finds her, and is twirling her around and kissing and hugging and throwing her up in the air. So evidently it's okay as long as he initiates, but not if she does.
Right. Because,
that's the way it should be with women folk. So I know you don't have your bingo card in front of you. I did mark off 1970s woke moment. Town folk disappear because none of these people are seen of again. Running up and down the hill. We had that with Laura in the very beginning. Wild animals attack. The chicken hawk attack the chickens. That's how we found out he could do that. Ma and Pa shared many knowing looks throughout this episode. There was definitely ethnic. There was many ethnic stereotypes with Slick McBurney over there. Someone did get hurt.
Well, a lot of people got hurt at the end. They were just throwing, fighting each other. So,
but we have Mr. Edwards actually had to have Doc Baker look at his hand because he wasn't using a glove in the beginning, and Jebediah was throwing a heck of a throw. And then they tried to knock out Jebediah as part of their revenge on the other side. Of course, even Jack ran the bases this episode. So Justice Harriet definitely did some betting and other things she shouldn't have done. Carrie spoke. She said she was going to play baseball. Willie was in the outhouse when Laura was trying to demonstrate how good of a throw Jebediah Mumfort was, she threw a rock at the outhouse while Willie was in there. I didn't hear any O'Nells, but I
No.
did hear an O'Charles. And then we had guests on both Bonanza and Gunsmoke. So, like I said, I had 3 chances for a thing if they'd had popcorn in bed, if Willie had stood in the corner, or if we had had night cops, I would have had a bingo. But
Yeah. I know I was close on a couple of instances. Nobody cried though. So
yeah,
this was
not
this
even
was
tears
kind
of
of a
joy. Like,
yeah, this was kind of a fun episode. Just to show you, hey, baseball existed kind of sort of, but not in this capacity at this time. But
yeah,
yeah, it's a fun little throwaway episode, but nothing really meaningful other than don't gamble on a Sunday, people. That's
yes.
bad. And I'm trying to think of what
Unless
else
you
I wanted to
donate
say.
it to the church,
Yeah,
then
just
it's
donate it to the church and it'll be perfectly fine. We'll
it'll be
find that
better.
again often where it's just like, well, as long as you're doing it for the church, you can do whatever you want.
And justifies the means. So,
Um, I can't remember. There was something I was gonna. Oh, out of idle curiosity, I looked at the ages of the actors during this episode,
yes.
and Doc Baker, Kevin Hagen, when he filmed this, was 47 years old,
Oh my gosh.
and Dabbs Greer, who is Reverend Alden, was a year older than me.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, wow, people aged differently.
I think we like accepted our age a lot more. Like we
Yeah, and
just
I realize
morphed
I'm
into
just
the
a
new
weird
thing.
old lady, but I
For
was like
those of
kind
you,
of
yeah,
shell shocked that
yeah.
I had damn near a decade on Doc Baker.
One of the videos on my feed this week was Blanche Devereaux talking about being a 43-year-old woman. And she was,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. But that's the episode. So that was in the big inning.
ah,
Har. So if you like baseball, here's your episode. We'll get a football one here next season, I believe. But yeah,
yeah.
this was your sports for this season, I believe. So
Well, it's like we had Founders Day last season. I think
yeah,
they started to realize that they liked doing events where like they could get the whole town in, but you didn't have to like have a ton of lines for everybody.
they
I
could
mean,
just
we
stand
got to
around and
see
cheer, and
Nellie
you
and
can see
Willie and stuff
people.
like that, but not really. Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought it was a good one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one too. It's just kind of a fun little episode. So
I'm still my biggest moment of joy is just the 2 times that Edwards got to run around the
had to
bases.
run around the thing.
I just need somebody to make a little video snippet of that for me so I could just play that when I'm having a bad day. All right.
And the sun has set on Giddy Geeker on the Giddy Geeker. So we're gonna wrap up this recording. This is a nice
Just
little
like the
edit. We
last
kind of ran out of time.
year,
So
this episode was called on the count of darkness.
that's
Or
right.
the fact that the free Zoom cut us off. But we will see you next week. It'll be episode
Yes.
5, which is, do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, hold on. One second.
Oh, I want to think it's the Fool's Gold one.
Oh, is it so soon?
I know that's
You know
this
what's been
season.
interesting for me is like episodes like this, they're not the ones that are so like hit your heart. So I didn't remember as much of this one,
Yeah.
but I do remember the Fool Goes one. So no, this is Haunted House.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I did watch that one. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, Laura gets to hang out with old men.
Yeah. She's getting
This
a
is
troubling
problematical.
problem of befriending strange men. So,
Yeah.
Charles, Carolyn, mind your daughter.
Yeah.
Okay,
The Fool's
but
Gold is until episode 10. But
Yeah.
until then,
we'll see you on the prairie.
bye.
Thanks for listening to Two Woke Bonnets. To find out more and to download your bingo card, visit twowokebonnets.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever fine video and audio podcasts are played.